If something in your relationship feels off, but you can't explain why. If you've spent years trying harder in the relationship and yet it just keeps hurting, this space is for you. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. If you are in a relationship marked by covert narcissism and you constantly feel too emotional or too reactive, this episode is for you. Many people living with covert narcissistic dynamics begin to question their own stability. You may even start wondering, am I the problem here? Am I the narcissist? You've been told that you're dramatic or hypersensitive, overreacting, unstable, and somewhere along the way, you might actually start to believe this, or at least to question it. Today, we're going to look at emotional reactivity through a nervous system lens, not as a character flaw, not as proof that you're broken, but as a biological response to unpredictability, invalidation, emotional disconnection, and what that really means for your healing. In covert narcissistic dynamics, you are often cast as the emotional one. And maybe you are emotional. I want to be very clear here. There is nothing wrong with being emotional. In fact, that's a very part of human nature. Every single one of us has emotions, and that absolutely impacts how we think and behave. Sadly, there's just too many people in our lives that refuse to acknowledge this truth. They have emotions too, and it's impacting their behavior too. They might tell you, well, you're the one who escalates. You're the one who can't let things go. You're the one who always needs to talk about it. Which again, maybe you are. Maybe you want to talk about things. Why? In order to clear the air, not just let it disappear into thin air, never to be talked about again. Because it doesn't just disappear, it festers, and it festers within you. If you could clear the air with them, then that festering would go away. Meanwhile, they appear calm and ready to go back to this pretend everything is okay place. But that's not working out so well for you. They might detach and disengage, or they become quietly exasperated by, your supposedly bad behaviors. And you start measuring yourself against that, against their silence or against their accusations. But calmness, that magic, return to calmness when everything's just magically okay again, that's not always healthy. Sometimes that calmness is shut down, which is emotionally unhealthy. Sometimes it's avoidance, which is emotional immaturity. Sometimes it's control, which is emotional cruelty. Emotional flatness from them can look stable on the outside to the people around you, but it's creating complete instability on the inside of the relationship. So you react. Of course you do. How do you not? You are reacting to emotional unhealthiness, emotional immaturity, and emotional cruelty. Reactivity is not a personality trait. It's a nervous system response to a perceived threat. You are having a very normal reaction to bad behavior. Your nervous system is designed to not only keep you alive, but also to keep you safe, to keep you emotionally safe, and to keep you connected to those around you. When attachment feels unstable, meaning you feel dismissed or criticized, stonewalled, subtly blamed, or emotionally abandoned, your body interprets that as danger. Not because you're weak, but because human attachment is wired into survival. The same survival circuitry that responds inside of you to physical threat activates during emotional and relational threat. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between standing in front of a bear and being shut down by your partner. Let that sink in for a minute. Your nervous system responds the same whether you're standing in front of a bear or being shut down by your partner. It responds the same. Your heart rate rises, your chest tightens, your thinking narrows and, in fact, becomes almost impossible, and you feel this incredibly powerful sense of urgency. So then maybe you do push harder. Maybe you do escalate things. You raise your voice and you get desperate with your tone. Well, yes, that makes sense. Maybe you do become highly emotional and begin to cry. Again, that makes sense. Maybe you can't let it go and you start desperately over explaining because maybe you do need to talk about it. Again, that makes sense. But they respond with, "You're so reactive, you're so emotional, you're so needy." What they miss is that your body is responding to a threat. It is responding to what it perceives as unpredictability and disconnection. Your responses, your reactions are because you desperately want the connection with them, and they miss that. Unpredictability is especially activating to the nervous system. When the rules keep shifting, when conversations get rewritten, when accountability turns into defensiveness, your nervous system never fully stands down. When things magically return to that pretend that never happened land, your nervous system stays on alert. It might be a reset button for them, but your system is now stuck in the on position. When a nervous system has been on alert long enough, the threshold for activation lowers. It does not take much anymore for that level of activation to get heightened. What might look like a small thing in the moment is often the result of a long term accumulation of unresolved tension from all the past trauma. Your reaction to them, in other words, does not begin that day. It began with a pattern that's been going on for how long? Now, I want to pause here and get a little more specific about what's happening biologically when you feel reactive. When your partner dismisses you, stonewalls you, subtly blames you, rewrites what happened, or withdraws their affection, your body does not process this as a minor disagreement. It processes it as attachment threat. And attachment threat is one of the most powerful triggers in the human nervous system. Your amygdala, which is the threat detection center of your brain, I think of it as like the periscope on a submarine, always looking for threat. Okay, that is your amygdala. It's constantly scanning for danger. It is fast, it is automatic, and it is not logical. When it detects unpredictability or disconnection in a primary attachment bond, okay, we're not talking about your grocery clerk at the grocery store. We're talking about your spouse here. And so this is a primary attachment bond. When it detects unpredictability or disconnection in this bond, it sends an alarm signal before your rational brain even has time to interpret what's happening. That alarm activates your sympathetic nervous system. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tighten, your cortisol levels rise, your breathing shifts. Okay, we go into this hyperventilating, shallow breathing state. Blood flow moves away from long-term, planning and long-term systems in your body, and it moves towards immediate survival. Now, here's the part that most people don't understand. When your amygdala is activated, activity in your prefrontal cortex, which is another part of your brain, that part decreases. So the amygdala goes up, the prefrontal cortex decreases, it goes down. So let's talk about what this is. Your prefrontal cortex is responsible for logic, impulse control, perspective taking, emotional regulation, short term memory, executive functioning. It's your wise adult brain, your higher thinking brain. But under perceived threat, your brain prioritizes survival over sophistication. That is the way you are made. That is the human body. You can't control this. Remember what I said, the amygdala is fast and it is automatic. Your brain prioritizes survival. That is automatic. It's its number one job over sophistication, even over happiness. Those things are secondary. Survival is number one. So it temporarily downshifts higher reasoning in favor of protection. So when someone later says, "You were so irrational," well, they're probably right. At the time, you weren't, because what they are often describing is a brain that's in a threat response state. You think you'd be rational standing in front of a bear in the woods hiking and this happens, all of a sudden there's a bear? That is not the time for a logical, rational conversation. This is not a moral failure on your part. This is neurobiology. You are responding in a healthy way to a bad situation. You are responding in a normal, automatic, survival way to a bad situation. So the problem is not your response. The problem is the bad situation. Now, that doesn't mean we don't need to work on our responses and our reactivity. Yes, we do. But it is not where the problem is. The problem, again, is the bad situation. Now, I want to layer attachment onto this. Human beings are wired for co regulation. From infancy, our nervous systems develop in response to our caregivers. If a baby cries and a caregiver responds with consistency and warmth, the baby's nervous system learns that stress is manageable, okay, and that it can settle. The baby starts to learn this and learn how to do it then. It's a co regulation. They learn to do it from their caregivers. But if the responses are inconsistent, dismissive, critical, unpredictable, cold, then the nervous system learns something different. It learns that connection is unstable.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait, order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
And so I must stay alert. That wiring does not disappear in adulthood. It shows up in romantic attachment. If you are in a relationship where responses are unpredictable, but sometimes warm, sometimes withdrawn, but sometimes accepting, sometimes blaming, but sometimes receiving, your nervous system cannot fully stand down. It can't trust the environment. So it stays in this low-grade state of vigilance. So again, your threshold for activation stays lower because your system is always already in an on position. This is why small moments can produce big reactions. Your reactions are not about the dishwasher. They're not about the words that were just said. They're about the accumulated pattern of unpredictability. Now, I'm going to go a little further here. And if we bring in polyvagal theory, okay, there's a lot out there about this right now, in very simple terms, though. Your autonomic nervous system operates in different states. When you feel safe and connected, your ventral vagal system stays active. In this state, you can think clearly, you can connect emotionally, you can listen, you can repair. This is where healthy conflict resolution happens. But when you feel threatened, your system shifts. Now it's in sympathetic activation, which is your fight or flight mode. This is urgency, defensiveness, raised voices, over-explaining, impulsively reacting. If the threat continues and reaches a point of feeling overwhelming or hopeless, which is what happens in these long-term relationships, your system drops into this dorsal vagal shutdown, or it can drop into a dorsal vagal shutdown, which feels like numbness, withdrawal, emotional collapse, detachment. Do these words sound familiar? I have so many people who've been in these 20 and 30-year marriages going, I just feel numb now. I don't even have any care left, because you've reached a point of dorsal vagal shutdown. Many of you are cycling between sympathetic activation, that's the fight or flight response, and maybe a partial shutdown because your environment does not provide consistent cues of safety. Nervous systems regulate in response to our cues around us. Again, I'm not talking about a grocery store clerk. I'm talking about your spouse. Your nervous system responds to their cues, tone of voice, facial expression, eye contact, predictability, repair after rupture. This is where a lot of the pain in dealing with a covert narcissist exists. It's in the harsh and cold tone of voice, or an angry or blank facial expression, a lack of eye contact, or staring holes right through you. No predictability and no repair. If you say to them, "That hurt," and your partner responds with curiosity and steadiness, your nervous system settles down. Your heart rate slows. Your prefrontal cortex re engages, and you feel safer. But if you say to them, "That hurt," and the response is, "Whatever, you're too sensitive," or even just a blank stare, your nervous system escalates. Not because you are being dramatic, not because you are being reactive, but because the cue you just received signaled a lack of safety. It brought invalidation and instability. Now let's return to a very honest and vulnerable part here. Maybe you are reactive. Maybe your nervous system has been shaped by earlier experiences, childhood unpredictability, emotional neglect, chaos back in your, birth home, criticism. Maybe you learned early on that connection was fragile and that you had to fight to be heard. Well, this matters. That wiring does not disappear just because you're an adult now. But here's the key. A nervous system cannot calm down in an unsafe environment. You cannot heal hypervigilance while continuing to experience instability. Nervous systems heal in safe environments. Your brain's ability to rewire, which is known as neuroplasticity, requires repeated experiences of safety. The brain updates its threat detection patterns when new experiences consistently contradict old ones. So, if your nervous system learned that connection was unpredictable and threatening in childhood, it can rewire itself with consistent experiences of safety and predictability. The opposite is also true. If your nervous system learned that connection is predictable and safe in childhood, it can now rewire itself and undo that with consistent experiences of invalidation and instability. Your nervous system needs repeated evidence of predictable connection to stand down from its anxiety level. You cannot heal hypervigilance while remaining in chronic unpredictability. That's like trying to lower the sensitivity of a smoke alarm while the building is still filling with smoke. Yes, you can work on your reactivity, and I highly recommend that we all do. You can build awareness. You can pause and learn to take a step back. You can change your expectations of them so that their behaviors do not shock you. How many times do they have to show you the bad behavior before we just expect it? You can strengthen your prefrontal cortex through mindfulness, breathing, grounding, therapy. You can learn to lengthen the space between the trigger and the response. Yes, I think all of this is incredibly valuable work. But the deeper question here is whether your environment supports nervous system regulation. Does your partner understand the concept of safety? Do they value repair and connection? Do they reciprocate your efforts? Do they recognize that their tone, defensiveness, and unpredictability affect you, and that these things have major impacts on your nervous system? Nervous system regulation is not a solo sport inside an intimate relationship. Nervous systems regulate in relationships. We are not designed to calm down in isolation while remaining in an ongoing threat. Co-regulation is a thing. It's where one person's steadiness helps to settle another's activation. Okay? And it goes both ways. I can be a co-regulator to my partner, and they can be one to me. This is foundational to secure attachment. But co-regulation requires two willing participants. If every time you attempt vulnerability, you are met with dismissal and subtle blame, your body learns that vulnerability equals danger, and it will react accordingly. If you truly want to work on your reactivity, and that's admirable, and I think all of us need to do this, the question is not just, how do I stop being reactive? The question is, what conditions allow my nervous system to feel safe enough to soften? Is your partner willing to create safety with you? Do they reciprocate it? Do they acknowledge patterns? Do they show consistent behavior over time? Now, if the answers to these were yes, you probably would not be listening to this podcast. But let's even explore some other questions. Can you create more predictability for yourself? Can you find people and activities that help your nervous system to stand down? Can you pause before engaging in a threat? Can you build support outside the relationship? This is where healing actually happens. So this week, instead of asking, am I being too emotional or too reactive? Try asking, what does my nervous system need in order to feel safe? And then look honestly at your environment. Is there consistency? Is there repair? Is there safety? Or is your body doing exactly what it was designed to do in response to ongoing threat? You are probably less unstable than you've been led to believe. And if there are parts of you that are reactive, that does not make you broken. It makes you human. The goal is not to shame your nervous system into silence. The goal is to give it what it needs, to give it the safety that it requires in order to soften. Your nervous system is not the enemy. It's been there trying to protect you all along. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If there were ever an audience that I wish did not have to exist, it would be this one, because of what it means you've lived through. I'm truly sorry that you understand this so deeply, and I'm really glad that you're here. May this be a place of safety, clarity, and peace. You are not alone anymore, and you don't have to figure this out by yourself. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you'd like to learn more about the support, resources, or coaching that is available for you, you can visit covertnarcissism.com. While I hate it for everyone who understands what I am talking about, I'm really glad that you're here, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.